put in today's event. We're so excited to have you all here. So I'm Heather. I'm one of the librarians at Berkeley Public Library. Oh, this is so exciting to see everybody. So welcome to today's Stories for Change featuring Aiden Thomas, author of Cemetery Boys. Aiden will be fielding questions from the audience and in conversation with Hota Mercury, an international and award-winning drag king who puts the cheese in machismo. So before we begin, I want to make some announcements. As part of the spring's young adult author series, Stories for Change, the library will be hosting a few more events. So the library will also be hosting Jean Yang, author of Superman Smashes the Klan, on Wednesday, April 28th at 12:15 p.m. This event will be on Zoom. So please register for that event, and the details are on the library's website. The library will also be hosting Edie Zaboy, author of Punching the Air, on Wednesday, May 26th at 12:15 p.m. Same details as Jean Yang's event. Zoom registration will be required for that event, and details are on the library's website. I want to thank the Friends of the Berkeley Public Library for generously sponsoring this event. And I also want to thank librarians Jack Bauer, Sarah Rosenkrantz, and Meredith Irby for initiating and planning these awesome series of events. Thank you. And thank you to Hota Mercury and Vlad Kaplan for helping facilitate and support this event today. Also, one other announcement, this event is being recorded and may be made available via the library's social media channels. Please be aware that we are recording. Feel free to exit this event at any time. And if you have any questions for Aiden today, please submit them to the Q&A. So welcome, Aiden. Yay.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here and talking to y'all. I was born and raised in Oakland, so we're basically neighbors. Very excited.
Oh my gosh, so cool. So excited to have you. So as Heather mentioned, I'm Hota Mercury. I'm also based in Oakland. And gosh, I am so honored to be facilitating this talk. I read this book and I felt like I couldn't breathe because I was just so glued to it. I loved it so much. But let me go into tell you a little more about Aiden. So Aiden Thomas is a New York Times bestselling author with an MFA in creative writing from Mills College. Originally from Oakland, California, they now make their home in Portland, Oregon. And as a queer trans Latinx, Aiden advocates strongly for diverse representation in all media. Aiden's special talents include quoting The Office, useless trivia, Jenga, finishing sentences with "is my favorite," and killing spiders. Aiden is notorious for not being able to guess the endings of books and movies and organizes their bookshelves by color. Ugh, I love
the latter always like drives my author friends absolutely wild. They like can't comprehend it. They're like, how can you find any of your books? I'm like, I know exactly what all of my books look like. That's how. So it's fine. Yeah. I just go to the right color.
I'm just imagining your home is just like a beautiful, like colorful array of books and then like a pile of book sleeves.
It's pretty, like, I mean, this is my big guy. He's all, so and then I have a smaller one over there, but yeah, it's all color coordinated.
I love. Oh my gosh. Well, great. Yes, welcome. We're so excited. Oh my gosh. Gosh, yeah. Well, I guess we're jumping right into this.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
All righty. Okay. So let me look here. Where are where are my questions, Heather? Are they in the top of the chat?
I believe so, yeah.
Hi, your questions are in the chat.
Beautiful. Just found them. Okay. All righty, everyone. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. So we're jumping right into it. For those who are like maybe barely trickling in, once again, this is Aiden Thomas, the author of Cemetery Boys. So our first question, what did your world building process look like for this book?
That's a really good question. I feel when I talk about like the world building when it comes to fantasy, because I get put on a lot of panels with fantasy authors, and they'll be like, here's my like really intense like diagram of how I like built out the magic system. And for me, I feel like I kind of cheated, because a lot of the magic when it comes to Dia de Muertos is like cultural and spiritual practices that I already do within my community to begin with, and just gave them like a very literal output. So for example, the marigolds, like in my culture, we believe that their scent and their bright color is what helps attracts our loved ones back to the land of the living for 2 days during Dia de Muertos. And so the only thing I did was I just kind of took that, put it in the book, and gave it a very like literal output. And that when they put out all these beautiful marigold displays in the cemetery, that's literally like what attracts the spirits of the dead brujex back to the cemetery. So I feel like I really got to cheat with that one, which was fun. And then a lot of it was just kind of tapping into what I was most interested in writing about my community, especially in East LA, which is heavily Latinx, and not just like one Latinx culture, like it's many cultures coming together. And so when I was creating this community of brujex, I knew that I wanted all of their magic practices to be like similar. It's not just like one kind of Latinx. It's not just Mexican folks. It's not just Cuban folks. It's everybody who's kind of coming together and has this magic. So yeah, and then the other thing that I really wanted to play with was a lot of magic systems that I found when I was younger and reading books were very rooted in gender. It's like boys could do this and girls can do that without there being any wiggle room for like trans or non-binary folks. So that was like the main thing that I really wanted to like unpack and push against. And for me, the most important part of the magic system was that it was gender affirming. So even though Yad's like family, his community, even his dad don't fully understand him or his identity, Lady Death in the magic understands it completely, to put forth the idea that society doesn't get to decide who you are, you get to decide who you are. And the magic sees that truth. So yeah.
So awesome. Yes, I thought that was absolutely like so powerful and validating, and is kind of like a reminder in the book of like that magic lives inside you, like
Yes.
personally, and is not in like an external validation. I mean, external validation is nice, but you know, the magic is enough.
But...
And then speaking also to you mentioned you like cheated. I caught myself reading and I was like, is this like the real basis of Dia de los Muertos? Like, am I missing? I need to like go back. Like, and it was beautifully, almost like a historical fiction almost, where I can be like, this is absolutely real. This is how this goes down. This tale as old as time. But yes, that's wonderful. I love that. And I especially loved, to be honest, you know, when I first picked up the book, I was expecting, you know, like a more Mexican Latinx experience, just based on like, you know, like you said, you hear East LA. For me, as a Mexican person, I think Mexicanos and or Mexicanics. And seeing the mix of like Colombian and Cuban and, you know, so many different like Latin American cultures represented in the book it not only like blew my mind, but I was like, oh, I want more of this. So wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And then we'll move on, I guess, to our next question. So will there be a sequel?
I get that question all the time. There's nothing in writing yet, but Cemetery Boys has blown up in such a way that I didn't expect. And so many people love it so much that if I do a sequel or a companion novel or a graphic novel, even, who knows, I want to make sure that it's a really good story that's going to, you know, be as like meaningful and special to everybody as the first one was. So I'm still figuring that out, but definitely never say never. I'm sure at some point I will get to it. I just need to find that really good spark of a story in order to commit to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And like, oh gosh, yeah, I just, like I said, I made it through this book. I couldn't put it down. And I'm like, I want more. So you mentioned graphic novel. Everyone's freaking out. You mentioned graphic novel.
Listen, they're great.
Yes, they are. I love it. Awesome. I'm gonna pray for that. um, and then, gosh, I'm trying to pace myself because I'm like really excited because I'm just like, wow, you wrote this book that I read.
It's wild. I still can't believe it
It's
either.
crazy. It's amazing. Oh gosh. Okay. So, I guess what was the hardest part about writing this book? Whether it be like, I guess, a specific scene or character or concept.
Um, yeah, I'm really bad at writing endings to books, as it turns out. So the ending is always the hardest for me. You, it's there's a lot of stress and kind of pressure that comes with endings because a bad ending can ruin a really like incredible book. And so gosh, I think I changed the ending like 5 times during edits until I finally like decided on one that like felt like the right way. But yeah, endings are so hard. There's because you need to like tie everything up. All of the themes need to come together. Like you need to be tracking that everyone has kind of like somewhat wrapped up their own personal stories.
Mm, mhm.
So yeah, that was really, really hard. And I just feel like I'm so bad at endings to begin with.
No, I
Like I swear every time I turn in a book to my editor, I'm just like, I write the email, be like, here's the draft. The ending's horrible. If you can figure out how to fix it, that'd be great. Because I don't know.
the ending, the last like 3 chapters are just blank.
Yeah, it's like here's like some bullet list points, but I don't really know. Here's like the vibe, but other than that,
Oh, well, we're our own biggest critics because I thought your ending was wonderful.
thank you.
It like hit me with these like crazy novella feels where I was like, oh my gosh, you're like, oh, I was offended, but I loved it. It sounds so weird, but anyway, that's well, wow, how funny. And then I guess the next question related to that was, what was the first part of the book that you created? Like, the plot or the characters or the theme.
So I do it like the totally backwards way. If you're gonna like, if you ever go to like a professional like book talk, or even just like read books about like what it's like writing a novel and like how you're supposed to do it, everyone is going to tell you to figure out your plot and then create characters that best kind of serve that plot. And for me, it's like I come up with the characters and the vibes first. And then it's like, okay, well, now I have to figure out how to like push these two characters together and get them a whole story. And like, I can't change the characters because now I'm really like invested and I like these ones. So
Mhm.
that's how I do it, which is totally the wrong way to do it. And for Cemetery Boys, it was kind of like the premise, so kind of like the sentence long pitch that I came up with first. And I came up with it because I was on scrolling through Tumblr, like in the
Mhm.
middle of the night on my phone, and I follow like writing prompt blogs that just kind of like throw out random prompts and like helps kind of spark creative writing activities or whatever. So it was like in the middle of the night and I was just kind of scrolling like half awake and I saw this post that said, it was a sentence long and it was, what would you do if you summoned a ghost and then you couldn't get rid of it? And everyone had kind of like replied and reblogged and telling like these really like scary, spooky stories about being haunted or whatever. And I read it and I was like, okay, what if I summoned a ghost and I couldn't get rid of him? And what if he was really cute? And so that was honestly the like premise idea for Cemetery Boys. And then I came up with the two characters and I was like, oh yeah, they'd be great. And then I was like, oh no, now I have to figure out a plot to like fit all of this into. And
Mhm.
yeah, so that was my very backwards order of operations for writing the book. Um, but yeah, luckily it came together pretty easily because I was like, okay, well, if I'm talking about a Latinx boy and I'm talking about a ghost, then obviously it's going to be Dia de Muertos, which is my favorite holiday. So it was
Yeah.
really just kind of a really fun exploration and kind of a love letter to my community to be able to really like fully explore one of my favorite holidays. in this kind of like rompy rom-com paranormal
Yeah.
romance. I don't even know. It's the weirdest book.
I love it. I love it. What was I gonna ask? It'll come back to me. But I guess I was gonna say it's almost like fate, where it was
Uh,
just like you had that prompt showed up and you were just like, I have all of my ammo. I am
exactly.
a creator. I'm
Yeah.
gonna make this world.
Yeah, it was super random. And even when I was pitching it to my editor, I had sent her like 5 story ideas. And Cemetery Boys was the very last pitch, like in that email, and it was only like a couple of paragraphs long. And
Mhm.
most of the sentences ended in question marks because I was like, maybe this and maybe that. I don't really know. This is just kind of a vague idea. And then of course that was the one where she's like, yes, that's the book I want. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be a lot of work.
Oh, oh my gosh. I'm gonna sneak my own little question in there. Did you find yourself having to like research a lot or about Dia de Muertos, or was it more like just recollection?
Yeah, it wasn't really much research because it was just kind of like my lived experience with how I celebrate that holiday. I did do some research in terms of kind of like looking up like the really base roots of some of the like practices that come with it. But other than that, it was just like,
Yeah.
I've lived this and this is a holiday that I celebrate. So it was kind of
That's
again cheating.
awesome. Yeah. No, I love that you can definitely like feel that when you're reading the book too. It's not like a caricature of like what Latinx community
Right.
is. It's like this is real. Like I
Yeah.
hear Lita.
Yeah. Right.
Which I love because I called my great grandma Lita, and like I
Yeah.
hadn't really met any other Latinx people that use Lita
Yeah.
very often. And I was like, this is so cute. Oh gosh. So I love it. I'm just gonna keep saying it. And then are there any ideas about the characters that didn't make it into the book?
Um, Not really. I'm a really intense plotter when it comes to books. So I kind of know everything that's happening each step of the way. But for me, what I did want to add, and I just like didn't have the room for, and the plot changed, was that I had planned a romance between Rio, who is Julian's older brother, and Paula, who is Maritza's older sister. So when
Oh.
I first like conceptualized the book, Paula was going to have much more of a part to play in the story. But then I
Mhm.
realized I was kind of taking too much agency away from Julian and Yads. So
Mm.
I ended up not doing that. But I mean, if there's a sequel,
You
then there
right?
would be room for me to like pull in that romance.
Oh my gosh, how fun. Wow, it's behind the scenes. Um, let's see. I guess how did you create your main characters? And then a follow-up to that is like if they were based on people you know, or maybe characters you read about in other books.
Yeah, that's a really fun question. They're not based on anybody I know in particular. I think kind of looking at it on paper, everyone's going to assume that like Yads is like my self-insert character because we have a lot of the same identities or exactly the same identities, I'd even say. But I'm actually much more of a Julian. Julian definitely has my personality and like my loudness and like my kind of obnoxiousness and my very short attention span and my
Hmm.
ADHD. So they're kind of like split in that way. But one of my favorite things to do is to actually, in order to make characters stand out and kind of have their own personalities, is I like to steal things from friends or people I meet in real life and give them my characters like those quirks. So, for example, oh, I guess my favorite one is Julian. When he gets really excited, he'll start repeating things in threes. And that's something that when I was younger, my best friend's older brother would do when he was talking. And it was like one of my favorite like verbal tics. He would be like, and I was trying to tell him, I was trying to tell him, I was trying to tell him, and then like complete the sentence. And that's what
Uh-huh.
Jules does in the book.
Oh,
So that was, yeah, I like stealing things from other people in order to like make my characters more nuanced or whatever. But
yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome. Well,
Yeah,
it makes them more like human, like,
totally. Yeah.
like it's actual human experience at that point.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Oh my gosh. And then let's see. Oh, too fun. Okay, I'm making my way down here because now we have some Q&A from the audience.
Awesome.
So fun. Okay, so we touched on this a bit, but what was your main inspiration for like the entire story? You know, we have your Tumblr post, we have your Love for the Other Muertos. Would we say that that's pretty much your platform?
I mean, pretty much. I think what I was really the most drawn to was the idea of having a ghost as a love interest in a story, and like, what does that mean, and how does that unfold? And at one point, I was talking about like my numerous books, ones that I've written and ones that I'm still plotting with one of my friends, and they're like, "Wow, you really like there to be the romantic relationship to kind of be a doomed one that you think is never going to work out." And I was like, oh, I was like, I did not need to be read like that, like so rudely, but okay.
You're
So
all don't. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, so that,
Yeah.
that was a really big thing that I was like interested in. Was like, okay, well, how do you work through, like, what does that look like? How does this come to an end? And especially like a satisfying ending. So yeah, the paranormal romance was a big inspo, and it's been so like outside of like the mainstream like paranormal romances, that like when we were first like talking about the book on social media and stuff like that, I used the phrase paranormal romance, and then my team was like, Aiden, maybe don't do that because it's kind of like no one thinks that that's cool right now. And I was like, oh.
Girl,
And then
that's
it
not
came out.
fetch.
Yeah, and then it did really well. And
That's
now it's really cool seeing all these new book announcements where there's a bunch of ghost books coming out, and I'm just like, yes, this is what
That's
I've been craving,
awesome.
finally.
Yes. So great. Yeah, you know, you put out what you're not seeing, you know? Like
Yeah,
you're like you create what you want in the world.
yeah,
And that's awesome.
exactly.
I love too, you mentioned like a paranormal romance. And I mean, as like a 90s kid, I think of Casper. And I love
Yes.
that there's like a very tiny line from Maritza where she's like, okay, we're gonna get you and Casper home. And I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
I see foreshadowing
I
here.
still have so many feelings about that movie and the end of it, and I just like, oh, my heart. It's so good. It's so good.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Too good. And then another question we have here is, what does your family think about your book being published?
They're thrilled. I think they're still in shock. I'm still in shock when like anything big and exciting happens. Um, yeah, they're very excited, super supportive, super cool about it. I mean, they know that I've been wanting to write for like my whole life, so to see that it's actually like happening is very wild for all of us. My mom, every time I'm like, oh, this happened, she's like, I still can't believe it. Like, and I'm just like, I know, it's weird. And I took her, we went to a Barnes and Noble like recently, because I was going to see if they had any stock. I always feel really awkward kind of going in and being like, I'm Aiden Thomas, do you have my books? I'll sign them for you. So what I do is I like sneak in, see if they're even carrying it, because maybe they're not. And then I'll like very quietly be like, hey, do you mind if I just like sign these in like this back corner really quick? And they're really cool. But like I took my mom one time because I was out taking her shopping or whatever, and we stopped in, and there was a couple of young adult readers who were in like the YA section. And when we had like walked in, they were like, are you Aiden Thomas? And I was like, yeah, hi. And they're like, oh my gosh, we love Cemetery Boys. We're so excited for Lost in the Neighborhoods.
Oh,
And my mom started crying.
that is like the most like Latina thing ever.
Yeah, she like lost it. She was like, just like, she had to like move away. It was really funny.
Oh my
I was like, this is so awkward. Yeah,
awkward. That's so sweet.
It was
I'm
really
like in mom
like, it was very
headspace.
sweet, but I'm like trying to talk to these readers while my mom is over there crying in the corner. It was really funny.
That's hilarious. I love it. Oh wow, that's cute. That's very wholesome.
Yeah,
As
very
awkward as
wholesome.
it probably was.
Yeah.
Aw, so cute. And then let's see. Oh, if you could go back and change anything in your book, what would you change and why?
Oh, I would. It's funny because about a third of the time when I do virtual events, they're like, "Oh, can you read it from your book?" And I'm like, "Yes, of course." But whenever I'm reading, and anytime I pick it up and I start reading it, I start like copy editing in my head, being like, "Oh,
Oh.
I should change that word," or actually that word would fit better. And you used that word like 2 paragraphs ago. So if I had to change anything, I think the plot is exactly what it needs to be, all the character arcs. It's really just the like fine details of like making the language prettier, which I know I will never grow out of, but I think a lot of authors kind of always feel that way. It's like as soon as you
Mm.
open, like, here's your completed published book. And you look through it and you're like, oh dang, I should have fixed that sentence or something
Oh,
like that. And for Cemetery Boys, I had to write it very quickly. I was given 6 weeks to write the first draft.
no. Woo!
Yeah. So it was a bananas experience. I hope to never do it again.
Oh my
But because of
gosh.
that, a lot of the language was very like rushed and sloppy. So there was so many rounds of copy edits to try to make it like look prettier. That I think that I could still keep on doing that and making it sound prettier. It's funny because past pages is kind of the final stage of the book before it goes off to printers. There's someone who will format it and put it in a PDF, and it's like perfectly aligned with all the words and everything that's there, and it looks like a book. And they kick it to the author to like read over it one more time, and if there's any like grammatical issues, to go ahead and to make those changes during past pages. And I was like, cool, got it, sounds good. I started doing them and I was like, man, I'm making a lot of notes on this. And so I started messaging a group chat with some of my author friends, and I was like, hey, during past pages, how many changes did you guys do? And a lot of them were just like, oh, like 20 or 25. And I was like, uh-oh. And then someone else was like, oh no, Aiden, don't worry, I did 250. And I was like, okay.
Uh,
But I was
you're
on chapter 4 and I had made over 450 edits so far. So I was like, my editor is gonna murder me in my sleep.
oh.
And so I ended up turning in the past pages, something that should only have like a handful of notes. I ended up having over 1,400 notes on it. And I was really scared when I sent it to my editor. That's just going to be like, Aiden, it's way too late in the game to be making all these changes. But luckily, she just was like, okay, great, thank you. And then
Whew.
yeah, but it's stressful. And like that just really goes to show how much more like line editing there was to do. But yeah, that was really funny. I like telling that story. And my other
Wow.
friends
Well,
are always like,
no.
oh my gosh.
Oh, 6 weeks.
Yeah,
Holy
it was very
cow.
fast. I
That's
could only,
amazing.
I literally could only do it because I had outlined the entire thing and knew exactly what I needed to write. Because
Yeah.
if I kind of just started writing it and like went with like the vibes or whatever, I can literally sit and stare at my computer like agonizing over how I write one sentence for like an hour. So if I got trapped doing that, it would have taken much longer than 6 weeks. So I was just like, you know what, Aiden, you don't get to think, you just get to do what's on this list and then just
Yeah.
get it done.
Structure does help. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, wild.
So crazy. Oh my goodness. Wow. And when did you start writing?
I started writing like back when in elementary school, probably like fourth or fifth grade. Uh, my mom likes to talk about how uh, at the end of the week, my teachers would send me home with like a shopping bag full of like papers that had like my like little like uh, short stories or just like writing, and then like little doodles that I would do because I like could not pay attention during class. And so I'd end up
Mhm.
doing like my own thing. And my teachers were always very nice, but like at the end of the week, my desk would be overflowing with these papers with my writing on it, that they would put it into a bag and like send me home with it at the end of the week. And
Oh,
my mom loves telling that story. So yeah, so for a really long time. And then in high school, I finally took like a creative writing class, and I started doing fanfic, which is honestly how I learned to write. It was by writing fan fiction.
I've been
Like
wanting to mention it
absolutely.
this whole time because I was
Yeah,
like, if you don't do the sequel, you already know there's a bunch of little babies out there who are gonna jump on some fan fiction.
yeah. So like writing fanfic is honestly how I learned to write. And I went to college and I double majored in psychology and English. And then I decided that I wanted to get my MFA in creative writing. And then a couple of years after that, my first book was purchased. So it's very exciting.
That's
A very long journey.
a wonderful journey.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned that you had initially pitched like a series of like book ideas where Cemetery Boys was included. What were your other book ideas?
I don't think any of them were very good, that stuff. Like off the top of my head, I use Google Drive like exclusively because I don't trust Microsoft Word to protect my stuff on my computer, and I like having access to it wherever I am. But I have like a whole folder that's called work in progress ideas, and there's just a bunch of docs with just like random like premises or ideas for stories I kind of just throw into, and like eventually one of them will start looking like book shaped, and that's when I'm usually like, okay, this I can like share with my editor and start turning into something. But I recently sold 3 books, which I could tell you guys about. And the first 2 are going to be a duology, and it's a young adult duology that I pitched as Percy Jackson meets the Hunger Games. So it's about demigods in this battle for life and death. And it's really cool. And I just turned in the first draft of it a couple of weeks ago, I guess. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. So that's very exciting. Exactly 2 weeks ago, actually. And then the second is going to be, the second book in that series. And then the third book that I have coming down the way is going to be out in 2024. And I pitched that one as Gay Titanic in Space. So that will be my first sci-fi book. And I'm really excited. Yeah. So it's really funny because when you're an author and you're a new author, they want to kind of establish what your brand is. And I feel so sorry for my team because it's like, okay, paranormal romance, fairy tale retelling, which is Lost in the Neverwoods. And then I've got, Hunger Games situation, and then sci-fi. So and I also wrote a rom-com, which I'm hoping to sell soon, but I'm all over the place. I have so many different ideas.
Oh no, that's great though. It's just an endless spout of creativity.
Yeah, I'm very excited for all of it.
Oh my gosh, how awesome. Well, I'm looking forward. I'm a big fan of sci-fi as well, so I'm just looking forward to
I
that.
love it. I'm really excited.
So cool. And then I'm like, you mentioned sci-fi. Another question is, do you consider yourself a nerd?
Absolutely. Oh, I don't think I've ever tricked anybody ever in my life into thinking that I'm not a nerd. So yes. I'm a book nerd. I like sci-fi. Lord of the Rings is a very important thing in my life. And I love anime, Haikyuu. I'm obsessed with Haikyuu. I just started watching Skate Infinity, which is also amazing. So
oh my
yes.
gosh.
Yeah.
Do you play any video games?
Oh, so many video games.
Okay, this is a question for me. What's your game that you like play the most right now?
Well, my favorite video game, just like period, is Dragon Age Inquisition. That game is so good. It's so good. If you haven't played it, you should play it. It's so good.
Okay.
It's amazing. But recently, my like go-to, aside from Animal Crossing, is Star Wars Fallen Order on PS4, and it's really good. It's really, really good. That actually helped inspire Gay Titanic in Space, because the like main character is like a scrapper, and I was like, oh, scrapper, that would be really cool. What if they want to jump onto the Titanic and steal their tech? So that's spoiler alert for what Gay Titanic in Space is going to be about. But yeah,
I'm just going to be watching Star Wars, anything Star Wars. I'm just going to be like, Aiden, Titanic, Space, and just like counting until 2024.
If you have ideas, just throw them my way and I'll work it into the book. I have time before I have to start writing it.
Oh, love it. And then someone asked, can you tell us about the tarot cards that you designed for the characters?
Yeah. Oh, I wonder if I have any within reach. I don't think I
And
do.
then a little follow-up question is, what other kinds of tarot designs do you do? If so.
I don't have the cards on me, but so me and Mars Lauterbach, who is my cover artist, the incredible Mars Lauterbach. Actually, this is a cool background story. I'll talk about this.
Cool.
So before I wrote Cemetery Boys, and when it was just kind of like an idea, I decided to treat myself by commissioning some character art. And I was following Mars on Twitter and on Tumblr, and they did character art for Haikyuu, which is one of my favorite animes, as I just discussed.
Yeah.
And I felt so dorky because I like messaged them. I was like, hey, can you do some like art for my like OCs? And they were like really sweet, and they're like, yeah, of course. So they started doing character art before. So Mars knew of these characters before even my editorial team did. So I was talking to them before I had turned in any kind of draft. And so they did character art, and what I thought would be cool was I wanted to do a pre-order campaign, and I wanted that. So like if you pre-order the book, you could submit to the campaign and you could get these character cards. I think there was 5 or 6. 5. Yeah, 5. And I was like, I want them to be kind of tarot inspired. And what I did for Yads is that he is the magician, which just kind of made sense for him as a character. And oh gosh, I wish I could remember. Julian, is Julian deaf? I can't even remember off the top of my head anymore. It's been so long. But then like there's a card with both of them together, and that one was the 2 of Cups, because all of my like tarot and astrology friends were like 2 of Cups is actually like the most romantic card, and I was like, got it. No lady. And then there's one of Lady Death, who is obviously deaf, and then there's one for Maritza, who is the star. And that was really fun. Just like I was like flipping through tarot, and I was like, okay, well, what do these cards mean, and like kind of picking what their themes would be. So that created the character cards. I went with the pre-order campaign. Excuse me. And then when I turned in the book, I like started sharing that character art with my editorial team, being like, look, isn't this cool? Isn't this awesome? I'm gonna do a pre-order campaign. And they're like, sounds good, Aiden. And then when I was just like, look at how pretty. And they're like, it's very pretty, good job. And then when it came time for the cover, usually authors have no say in what their cover looks like at all. But Macmillan actually let me have a lot of input. And one of the things that they did was they gave me a list of artists to pick from in order to pick as the cover artist. And it was really awesome because all of the artists that they picked were either people of color and or trans or non-binary. And I was like, this is amazing. So I started like going through the PDF. They had like little bios and then examples of their work. And then I got to the very bottom of the PDF, and there was this art of one of my favorite Haikyuu characters. And I was like, oh man, I love that character. And I was like, wait, I own that art. And then I saw that it was Mars, and I got so excited, and I was like, yes, please, please, please pick Mars.
God.
Yeah, so my team had like gone out of their way and was like, do you want Mars? And I was like, yes, please get Mars. And then Mars was available to do it. And yeah, it's just been the most lovely relationship ever since. It was really cool.
Amazing. So much fate for this book.
Yeah,
oh my
a lot of fate.
gosh.
It was cool.
How awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Seriously, the stars just align sometimes, don't they?
Seriously, they do, yeah. And it was also fun because since like I knew Mars, I could be like, what are the concept sketches looking like? And like they like sent me them.
In.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I just want to know.
Yeah. Curiosity.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And we have our last question to wrap up, which I think is a wonderful question to wrap up with. What reactions been to the trans parts of the book?
I mean, trans parts, I think the whole thing is trans. So the reaction to the book has been, I mean, wonderful and amazing. And so embracing. This is the first time that a trans writer made the New York Times bestseller list with a trans book, which is incredible. Yeah, and it's kind
That's
of life
awesome.
changing and earth shattering to finally kind of break one of those many walls down. And I am looking forward to many other authors and many other stories joining me under that title. So it's been amazing. Yeah, it's been nothing but positive and
Ugh, I
really
love
beautiful.
that.
Yeah, it's been
Oh,
incredible.
oh my gosh, yes. Ugh. Seriously, this book has been unlike anything I've ever experienced, and especially as like a trans and non-binary person, I'm like, I need more media like this in my life. So
Me too. So
yes.
go keep creating it.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you, Aiden, so much for answering all of those wonderful questions. I think
Yeah.
we're right about at time.
Okay. Yeah,
Hi,
thank you so
Heather.
much. This was really fun.
Thank you so much, the both of you. This has been so wonderful. You know, being in your presence and seeing the dialogue and all these wonderful questions and engagement. I really want to thank again Meredith and Sarah for doing such amazing outreach and again initiating and promoting this event. And thanks to Jack, if you're out there.
Yes, Jack.
This was your brainchild. Thank you so much. And again, thanks to the friends of the Berkeley Public Library for making this event possible. Thank you so much, Aiden and Hota.
Yeah, this was so much fun. Hope
Thank
that this was
you.
great.
Yes. Yeah, Aiden, you're my friend, Aiden. I'm sorry you're
Yeah,
stuck with me.
done. It's over. I'm glad
Yep.
we've agreed on that.
Yep. For sure. Oh, yeah. So honored to facilitate this again, and I look forward to the rest of your art and your creations.
Thank you so much. I'll see
Thank
y'all later.
you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Bye.
Bye.